Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 Prakim and Rambam. We are in relatively towards the beginning of Hilchos Kelim. We will be learning Prakim Gimel, Daled, and Hey, beginning with Pei Gimel. Now, we began Hilchos Kelim by enumerating the 7 types of Kelim that could become Tamim Min HaTorah, and one of them is the Klei Eitz. Today, Pei Gimel and Pei Daled, we're going to go into many details regarding the Klei Eitz. Many of us are already familiar with the term that a Klei Eitz ha'asui l'nachas, that if you have a wooden utensil, that if it was made to be stationary, is not like Kabul Tuma, not even Medivrei Torah, but not only that, but it's not even the Kabul Tuma Medivrei Seifrim. So we're going to learn a lot of pratim regarding this rule, which normally is associated to the size of the kelim. And as we will see in this Perek, no, that's not the way you approach this whole din of Klei Eitz ha'asui l'nachas. Let's dive right inside. Perek Shlishi has 8 halachas, beginning with halacha Aleph. It says that Rambam called Klei Eitz any wooden utensil that is made with the intent for it to remain stationary. Ha'asui l'nachas. Here is the biggest thing, tachab. If it's made with the intent of it being stationary, I don't care how little it might be. Doesn't matter. You made it for it to remain stationary. And let me go in the opposite direction. If you make a wooden utensil and you made it with the intention for you to move it about, Malay Verekon key is also, it's not only that you intend to move it when it's empty, you intend to move it even when it's full. Guys, remember, even if it's humongous, it can hold 100 sa'am, even though it has a base, which means it very comfortable, can remain stationary. That dafke, the enoi also who made it for a specific intent, which includes you moving it around on a biblical level. However, in other words, when you make a wooden utensil and you did not yet determine what it will be used for, here is where the shiurim come in. It's made. What will I use it for? I'll determine later. So now the rule is that if it has a base, which allows it to remain stationary, sitting comfortably on the ground. In other words, the base is to make sure that it doesn't roll around. And it can hold the amount of 40 sa'ah of liquids, equivalent to 2 kur, if you have in it a dry substance. Now, guys, 1 kur is 30 sa'ah. 2 kur is 60 sa'ah. 60 is a third more than 40. And indeed, that's what we always learn, always comes up now and then. Now, when you have a keli, when you put in it a solid, you can heap it above the walls of the keli, right? When I put water, if I put 1 drop more than the 8 ounce, let's say, it's going to spill over. If I put sugar, right, poison, if I put the flour with gluten, achilik, if I put food in, if it's not a liquid, it's going to make a heap. How much am I able to heap it prior to it spilling over? So the rule is that a third of the total, which is perfect. So 40 sa means biyavesh 60. 60 sa is 2 kur, which is all the same shear. Ein makabel to maklal. Now, ein makabel to maklal says, meaning not only is it not makabel to medivrei Torah, it's not even makabel to medivrei seif. I don't know. I remember learning this many times. The 40 saw. What is beautiful in today's Rambam in the beginning, really, it's about your intent. And if you intend to move it, I don't care how big it is. If you dafk intend to keep it stationary, it will never be makabel tuma. I don't care how little it is. Elama, if you make a keli, and you're selling it, you don't know what the guy's going to buy it for, or you bought it, you didn't yet designate its purpose. That is where we have these 2 things. If it has a base and it's 40 saw or bigger, then the chazaka is that you will use it not to be moved. And I know Yazalik is looking at me. And by the way, the 40 saws we'll see in a moment doesn't mean 40 saw of content. As well, the Rambam will go into details. It's all about the heaviness, the weight of the keli. So we include, as we'll see, the walls of the keli. Aleph, all these things, all these shiurim come from Hashem. However, there is a certain, let's say, remez, that just like, we quoted the pasuk yesterday, the pasuk in Shmini, where the Torah juxtaposes kelim made from different materials. Guys, whoever is in Los Angeles, the fast just began. When it says, Mikol klei ha'etz, oy beged, oy sak, the Torah puts together these materials. One of the things that we learn, and it's really b'divrei Kabbalah. In other words, the shear is, we know, this is a remes. Ma'asak is something that could be moved. Mali vereikon, because people make sacks to transport things in them. So you never will make a sack so large that when you fill it up, you can't move it. Af kliates, leyatam elam kain. And that's lohoitzik kliates are also linachas. Gavaldik. Halacha beis. Hakelim shechaskosem shemasuim linachas. Kelim that generally people make. You have certain kelim, certain cabinets, certain cupboards. That's what they're made for. That kolan shida, or a table, or a migdal, or, excuse me, kaveres akash, kaveres akonim. The word kaveres literally means a beehive. Many kelim then were made in that type of shape, whether they're made out of kash, whether they're made out of konim. Uboir sfina gedoyla v'chayotze be'elu. Boir sfina gedoyla is when you go through the sea, you need fresh water. However you defined in Chazal sfina gedoyla. If I'm going on the Mediterranean, you understand there's going to be a large reservoir. Normally it was made out of wood that was in the ship in which they kept the fresh water. That's the chazaka. Now, guys, don't forget again the beginning of this Pedic. If you know that you made your boyd for the Sfina, and you are also going to use it for another purpose, the halacha will change. But I was giving you the stam. The stam, we know it's still going to be moved. And these were, again, common kalim that we had then. Also, when you go on the land, you also need to carry water with you. But the very fact that you are able to put a barrel on a wagon, you understand, faked, you're moving it around. And the kustois hamalachim, when malachim go hunting or whatever they do, they need to take food with them. So the commoners, people like us, if we go hunting, God forbid, it's not us, right? There's a true of the Noid of the Yehuda where he explains how this should not be an occupation of a hobby of a yid. But anyways, when you go hunting, if you're not a melech, you're not going to, how much food can you take? When the malachim go, they're going hunting and they're bringing their steaks and all of their food, and for the whole entourage, it was very big kalim. So Abdon, the trough that was used to begin working on hides. Guys, all of these kalim, even though they're very large, they were made to be transported, the harden and a coffin. So even if they're making a coffin for Eid Malach HaBashan, what's the pshat of a coffin? You're putting the body in it and you're going to carry it from here to there. Doesn't matter that later you're going to, once you buried it, they won't have any contact with anything. It's made to be moved. Even if they're very large, meaning, no, even stam such kalim harem mekabel tuma shalei nasu mitchilas and ela lihitalton leleim. That's the whole purpose of the kalim. Unless you know otherwise. If a guy says, "I'm buying this dardur that you put on the horses, you put on the wagons. I like it, but I'm not going to use it for that. I'm going to use it for my house for X, Y, and Z. That's something else. That's the whole point. Once you're koveya its purpose not to move, it's never going to be makabel tuma. Not even a divrei seif. Sharko kliyates. So then we follow the rule. If it's nam, the yesh lem shalayim, again, the Rambam changes the order, but these are the two preconditions. And lefikach, the presumption will be, unless you decide otherwise, that a mekabel and tuma. Guys, we're in the middle of halacha base. Clay etzem, guys, remember this rule. Clay etzem generally follows the dinim, the details, the rules of clay eitz. So when we mentioned yesterday that you have seven types of kalim, they don't all follow the same rules. Well, bone kalim and wooden kalim are the same. And Vikli or Hamakablan Rabbi Shabalach, which is Kudaim Biyavesh, same rule. A Makablan Tuma Elim K Nasu Mitchilos at least Li Taltel Kishaim Alayim. Halacha Gimel Hashed Vateva Migdal. Different types of chests, cabinets, if they're made out of glass. Haboyim B'midah. Haboyim B'midah means, my friends, that they can contain 40 some. They are to hide him. Now, what's amazing by glass? See, again, technology today changed. But even today, logically, we relate to it. The larger the keli, the thicker the glass. It's like a catch-22. The thicker the walls have to be for it to be able to contain it. The thicker the walls of the glass, the heavier it becomes. The heavier it becomes, again, unless you know that you have another designation, it's going to remain stationary. And therefore, to hide it. However, that's only if it's the shade that teva migdal. However, b'shar kleis chuches, other types of glass utensils, it's amazing. Not the shade that teva migdal. They didn't use such thick glass. Af al pisha mekabel naboim so harei mekabel tumah. And so anyways, I explained this halacha the way I was reading the Rambam La'am. He didn't connect it to some sort of halacha l'Moshe Sinai, which cannot exist, because we learned yesterday that klei zechuches is b'chlal not addressed by the Torah. The whole tomb of klei zechuches, if you remember, is midrabanan, and it's because it's made originally from earth, from sand. And we actually learned that it's similar to klei cheres, but it's not fully similar to klei cheres. So anyways, he explains it with a rationale. It has to do with the way they made the glass, the thickness. So it's not just about Arbaim Som. Those three, it was very thick. The heaviness would not allow it to be moved. Other ones were lighter. Halacha dal. When you speak about 40 saw, and this is going to be a great intro to the final series that we're learning after Kalim, which is mikvahs. So people are familiar that for mikvah to be a mikvah, it has to contain enough water to cover the entirety of the body. And the Chachamim told you it's 40 saw. Now, how do you get to 40 saw? So 40 saw is a mikvah that is Amma by an Amma, Baroim Shalish Ammas, that has in it 40 saw. However, there's a big difference. When we're speaking about a mikvah in which you need 40 saw of mayim, you will measure the Amma by an Amma length, Amma width, 3 Ammas tall, the vacuum, the whole of the part, the inside, because you need 40 saw of mine. Dafka not over here. Here it has to do with the heaviness of the keli. So when you have a keli that is an Amma by an Amma, Baroim Shalish Ammas, for these dinim, you dafka measure the outside of the keli. Because I don't care if it's made out of wool. The wool also is something which renders it generally too heavy when it's full to be carried. It's not like the sack. And then that's the key. Not the inside of it. I'm not looking for 40 saw of mayim. If you were to measure the opening inside, the klikibel inside, it would be less. And you know what? Sometimes you have kelim that have very thick walls. It can be substantially less. I don't care. Because the oivi, the funness are part of the reason why you're not going to move it. You see, you begin this paydik, you get the whole picture. There's no magic to the shear of 40 saw. It's about, will you leave it stationary or not? So the Chachamim says, if it was not yet designated, then we say, if it has shulayim and it has this size, mistama, you're not going to move it. Aval oivi haraglayim. Now, let me say again, these are every nuance. You have to know how to learn shot over here. Oivi haraglayim, we're speaking about a case where the legs of this keli is attached. So you would argue, well, it's also going to add to its weight. I know that. But let me give you a mashal. If this is the keli, and the legs that are protruding are not only going down, which is the purpose of a leg, but it's also wider. It's thicker than the walls. So the leg is actually going out. The Rambam is only addressing the part of the leg that's going beyond the width of the walls. That's the way we learn pshat over here. Even though it's attached, even though the fact is that when you carry it, it adds to the weight, we're not gonna include that in this volume. Similarly, if a keli has a crown, and we're speaking about a crown that's attached from the outside, so since it's attached from the outside, so it's going beyond the width of the keli and up or down. I get that.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Just to clarify what you said there's no magic about 40. there's no magic about the 40 saw, but that's vis-a-vis Tuma Tyra. But regarding mikvah, there is magic with 40 saw, right?
Oh, for sure.
Okay, just making sure.
Danny, another thing, 1 second. 40 saw that Rambam writes that this shear of 40 saw that Rambam writes Divrei Kabbalah. Divrei Kabbalah means that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu that if you make a clay eights and it was not yet designated, Hashem said the measurement of 40 saw. All I meant is that let me word it, so maybe I shouldn't have used the words magic. Here, it's about you moving it. By mikvah, it's about you going completely under the water. So that's why when you measure the 40 saw by a mikvah, the amma by amma b'roim shalosh amos is the inside of that hole. And by a keli, it includes the walls. No, it's fine. There's nothing in there. Yeah. All right. Halacha. If inside one utensil you have a smaller utensil, you're going muchni. Muchni can mean a wheel. We're going to refer to these things as certain types of drawers. That is inside a shida. Now, you can ask a question. Who cares? If the measurement of the keli is 40 saw, I'll tell you why I care. Because maybe you only get to some of these drawers, unlike the beautiful drawers that we have today, even when the drawer was closed, some of it can protrude beyond the width of the wall, which is really what we're learning about. Like the legs that go beyond the width, the crown that goes beyond the width. What happens if there's a drawer? And only if you include that added width, because even when the drawer is closed, it's going beyond, only then do you have the 40 saw. So it depends. If you can fully remove it, then you don't measure it with it because it's not considered connected to it. And that's true not only regarding the measurement of 40 saw, but also the Eina Matzelas Ima Ba'oil Hameis. If you remember, right, Tuma Yoitzeis, Tuma is not Nechneses. So even though it's under an oil, this is called an oil b'toich oil, right? Or a keli b'toich oil, that which is inside the drawer, right? Eina Matzelas, because it's not in the keli, because the drawers are removable. If this type of muchni is not removable, then yes, both regarding the measurement of 40 saw, it's measured with it, and also to be matzel b'oil hametz. Now another halacha vav and a similar if there is some sort of cover on top of a keli. Now normally a cover, see again, we're going beyond the width or beyond the height or the legs. Sometimes it can be a domed cover. A domed cover does not go beyond the width of the walls of the keli, but it goes above it. If it is affixed to it, now guys, of course, if it's affixed from all sides and not a coffin over it, means that even when you open it up, there's hinges, there's something that you can't remove it. It's functional, but you can't remove it. Then there's space. You need 3 amas. You measure the highest part of the dome. But if it's not kavua, if it's pashat, a cover that you can take off and put on, and you don't have the 40 saw, unless you were to measure up until the height, including the width of the dome, it's not measured with it. Now, megurais, I know I said muchni means a drawer. That's the way they translate it. Maybe not in the English. Yeah, in the English also over here in the Chayenu. Megurais bifnim, this is what we are familiar with. So sometimes you open up a closet and you have drawers that even when you have the drawers, they open up only to the inside of the keli. That's megurais bifnim. Then always it's measured with it. Even if one wall of that drawer protrudes beyond the width of the walls. But if any drawer, this is the most typical drawer that we have. You have a closet, the closet is standing, there is a drawer, you have a handle, you don't have to open anything. When you open up the drawer, the whole drawer goes outside the width of the walls. Our types of drawers. Because the whole point of that drawer is for you, it's like you're going outside of the keli. So if the only way you hit the 40 saws by measuring that added, guys, another thing, in my closets that I have, the drawers are made beautifully. When you close the drawer goes and it aligns itself with the wall. We're always speaking about that you need that added space because even when you close this drawer, it doesn't fully close. It doesn't close within the width of the walls. Halacha 7. But if you lean it on its side, either it's built that way that you can lean it on the side, or you have to put a support. Even though we keep on speaking about the shalayim, and here it doesn't have 40 saw without you adding something else to support it. But we say, yeah, it has a shalayim. And since if you would now lean it on the side, even though you have to bring a external support system, it can then in that area, having it 40 some. So, and I'm just trying, it's a little bit difficult for me to understand it. Because again, once you measure the walls, where the Rambam says, I understand that some kalim, they're built in a way, they're not built properly. They're not symmetrical. So you can only fill it up with 40 so when you lean it. I understand that. The moment that Rambam began all this by saying that by kalim you include the walls, why would you ever have to lean it? You know, I don't get the Metzias. Let's go back. Halacha 8. Final halacha. If you remove one of its legs, even though he did not perforate it, they can still function as they functioned before. They remain tahor. Because they still have a base. And I know, my friends, that it's not going to be sitting properly because it's like lopsided. Nevertheless, it's about the cheskos and shehein lenachas kishoyim. Has to do with the shear. How great is that? So it's a large keli. It had 4 legs. Now it has 3 legs. Now it's going to be lopsided. Doesn't matter. It was a keli. It wasn't yet designated. It was made lenachas. It's still made lenachas. Okay. Moving on to Perek Revi. Today's second chapter is going to be the final chapter that's going to go into details of the klayates. But we're going to learn phenomenal details about a wooden utensil. Now, let me go back something. By a wooden utensil, what did we establish? That any wooden utensil that was made to be stationary, midoiraisa, that was last chapter. I'm sorry, another day. Any wooden utensil that's flat wooden utensils are not makabel tumah. Only if they have a base kibble, if they have a receptacle. We learned yesterday, I don't care how little the receptacle is, it means an indentation that can hold something. Then that we also learned that pshutei klayates, pshutei means flat, is pure midorais. Midrabanan, it could become tamei. This chapter begins by saying, not so quick. Even in pshutei klayates, there are 3 midois, which means there are 3 types of pshutei klayates. And as we'll see, some of them, whenever we speak about tumas, only midrabanan. Well, it's midrabanan. But some of them, even midrabanan, will not become tamei. We're going to learn in this chapter that chipui kalim, that Rambam holds, that kalim that are ornamentally, they are not coated. There's a better word for that. There's a certain type of you put metal on top of silver. You put silver on top of wood. I mean, you make a chipu, you make a covering.
If it's gilded,
it's gilded. Or very good. And it's any keli that is made out of a substance, but then you covered it with another substance. So the Rambam, if you remember,
or plated.
Plated, that was the word I was looking for. Plated kalim. Now remember, by Mizbeach Hazav, the Rambam already threw this out there. That was in reference to what we're going to have in this chapter. The Rambam holds that the utensil itself, by the very fact you covered it, is not keli enough to be makabel tumah. The chipui, the plating, the covering is not, it's only a plating. So the Rambam holds that any plated keli will always be taught. Big machlokes are shining about it. So is Shitas and Rambam, and B'chlal, we're going to learn about instruments that are made part out of wood, part out of metal. Let's just go to this. The topic is all about pshutei klayates, the main thing. And we learned flat metalware is just as base kibble metalware. So whether you have a metal bowl or a metal knife, they equally are makabel tumah. Not so by wood. At least even those that are makabel midrabanan midoiraisa pshutei klayates are not makabel tumah. Many utensils are made out of a mixture. You know, there are many times that's actually the style to have wood and to have silver. So the Rambam is going to teach us how are we going to classify such a keli? Is it wood or is it metal? Okay, and many more details. Perek Revi has 10 halachas. Let's get moving. Halacha aleph. So we are beginning with flatware. Shalosh midas b'chliyet she'ein asuyim lekabala. That was called in the beginning of the series pshutei klayates. And again, remember, the Rambam said pshutei klayates is makabel tumah. The Rambam used the words midivrei sofer. Here, the Rambam is beginning the 4th chapter by saying there are different types of categories of pshutei klayates. And here we go. Category number 1. Kol kli eitz that's made letashmish adam ulvad. Let's get used to these terms. If it was made solely for human use and not a keli that's made for both human use or letashmish adam and also letashmish kelim. I just want to just speak out by heart to get familiar with these terms. I'll give you an example. What's a table? A table is made letashmish adam. People eat on it. People learn on it. Maybe I went out of the wrong order. People learn on a table. People. Then you have a ladder. A ladder. People again that you can hang up your pants on one of the rungs of the ladder. That's not what it's made for. People have in their homes. They have these workout machines and they use it to hang their clothing. That's not what it's made for. The ladder is made l'tashmish adam, and it's going to be very important here. How do you this nakuda? Is it made l'tashmish adam? Is it made l'tashmish kelim? Is it made for both? With one other detail. Well, let's first the first one. Something that's only made l'tashmish adam, for example, a ladder. Guys, tahar. Now here's the word. Not only tahar midoraisa. That the Rambam doesn't have to write. A ladder is a great example of a flat wooden utensil. When you think about a flat wooden utensil, don't think about a board only. There is no base kibble in a ladder. There isn't a receptacle. Even midrabanan, it's not going to become tummy. And by the way, the Rambam brings a gavaldik limud. As again, we quoted today in the third chapter, as we began in the beginning, that there's a pasuk in Parsha Shmini where the Torah juxtaposes kelim made out of different materials. We call clay eitz, oy beged, oy oir, oy sak. So we have these like asmachtas. We compare one to the other. So sak is something that isn't only made to be mishamish the adam. Sak is also made to be, these are the words, to be mishamish, those that are mishamish adam. We'll give them examples, which is kelim. You put in the sack, you transport things in the sack. Things don't climb up a ladder. So it's so not like sak. Even midrabanan, it's not mekabel tuma. Category number 2, it's made both to serve man and to serve the servers of man, which means kelim, like a table, any type of countertop, a tabla, a bed. You know, it's common. You can argue bed are only made for people to lay down. You know what? Maybe today things changed. But even today, you can argue. Then zikr, a bed was made, to put, people would put their stuff on it. There was storage on it. That is what we learned. That midrabanan, mikabel and tuma, guys, remember, a bed has no clay kibble. It's never going to be doiraisa, but that's where it's mikabel tuma b'divrei seifrim. Now, shem letashmish adam. These are the words v'tashmish mishamshav. That means it serves those who serve people. Shaharei maniach haka'arei saloshulchan, plates which also serve the man. They are placed on the table. The koisois are put on a countertop. And he writes matzois, just the matzois itself. Even of course today I'm gonna take it back. Yeah, you have a blanket that's put on the bed. People always leave a blanket on the bed. A blanket is something that's mishamesh to adam, and it's made to be put on the bed. Beautiful. Category number 3, chol kli eitz. That's only made l'tashmish kelim bilvad. In other words, another way of Chazal's wording. Shareyu mishamshei, only mishamshei adam. Okay, that's number 1. Now let me add another thing, guys. This is the second thing we have to become familiar with. Im lo yehoya mishamish es hakelim. Even when it's only being mishamish kelim, it's only b'shas melacha bilvad. And the Rambam will give many examples for that. In other words, it's not made to be mishamish the kelim, not while you're working with the kelim. It's only there, it's only doing something that you need while you're working with the kelim. Here again, harei ze torah miklum. So it's amazing. So from the shalosh midos b'klei eitz, it chaps that only the second one, only the middle one, only one of them is the one that the Rambam says, pshute klei eitz are makabel tuma midrabanan. Now, what will be an example? So also, I got stuck here yet. Now I got it. A menorah. So Kevin put a great picture. There's a naid and a menorah. I confused it yesterday. Naid doesn't mean the light. Naid means the lamp. A lamp is a klei kibul. A menorah is a candlestick. Now, I know that many people in their homes, our candlesticks are made with a klei kibul. That's not what we're talking about. It's like a stick that has a flat top. There was no base kibble. There's no indentation in there. And on it, they would put the ner. The ner is a base kibble. Or you can touch the word menorah as a candelabra, which is the picture he has on Zoom. It's great. So wherever, if you look at this picture, all of the candles are not inside. There's no base kibble. Just to make it clear, if there's a base kibble, everything changes. So I'm annoyed and I'll think about it. You know what the beauty is? When do you need the candelabra? You know when you need the candelabra? Only when the candle is lit. Again, people use the candelabra. So when you light the ner, I don't want it low. I want it to be higher. So it's being meshamesh a keli only b'shas malachta. Once the ner went out, there's no purpose for the candelabra. Now again, this is you have to chop over here. Maybe if it's a very beautiful menorah and there's an ornamental design for the room, makes the room more pleasant, maybe it would change. And it has to be something that's never mishamesh adam. It's only mishamesh tashmish yadam or mishamsh yadam, and only b'shas malach. Another thing is shemashamesh haner only b'shas adlak. No, don't read v'chein. I made that mistake yesterday, guys. It's v'kan. Kan means a base. Any keli that's a base. Why do you need a base for? You need a base is that when I'm using that keli, my keli doesn't have a proper base, so I'm going to put it on this. I'm only going to use a base, something that's flat, made out of wood, to put another keli on it, which you would normally only do when you need that other keli, and you need for that keli to be upright. Another din, any diffus, any mold. Well, the Rambam will enumerate later. Like, think about it, molds that people use to make tefillin. You have to know how they are. We're speaking about the ikar of the mold will not have a base kibble. You're only using it during work. You never used it when you were not working with it. So it's a keli to help you do work. It's not directly being meshamash you. It's being used to make other kelim, and you only use it when you're making other kelim. You have to get used to these terms. Now, that is where we say category number 3, even midrabanan, it's not makabel. However, and even even if it never serves person, it only is mishamesh, what we call tashmishay mishamshav, only tashmishay mishamshav, but it's used even when you are not doing malacha. Then it will be mekabel again. Midivrei soif. For example, kisui hakufza, coverings of a box. So the Rambam is speaking about that you have a trunk that you want to store clothing in, and there's a covering on it, so it's made for the clothing. Fakert, it's serving the clothing when I'm not wearing it. Those kalim are being stored. So even if now many covers can have a base kibble, we're talking about a flat cover. That's a case that it's taka only serving my clothing, but it's always needed. Makes the room neater. Or the tik hasayef, the sheath of a sword. Now, when I thought about a sheath, it took me a while yesterday. A sheath has a base kibble. We must be speaking about some sort of sheath that doesn't have a kli kibble. Guys, remember that anything that has a receptacle is makabel tumah midoraisa. The Torah says kliyates. Some sort of sheath that doesn't have a base kibble. Or the sheath of a knife, not the knife, or the sheath of a spear, or the sheath of the scissors, or the sheath of a razor. Pashtes, how you read it? Now, the mechachoil is the instrument in which you would take that blue eye paint, whether it was to make you beautiful or for medicinal purposes, the one that you put in your eye. So the sheath for that. Or maybe the mechachoil itself. I see it might have been flat. Even though you touch it, the spoon, it was some sort of flat instrument. No, it's a sheath. A stylus. Beis HaKoichal is the I like what the Kavan found me a picture where there's a sheath that is open from both sides. That's what it is. The Maldik. Since it's open from both sides, it's not called a Beis Kibble. It serves a purpose because the handle gets stuck. So when you put it in the sheath, it won't fly down, but it has no base kibble. Okay, whatever it is, and it's made out of wood. That's what we're talking about. Or the well that you use to store the koichal, the tik tabla, the case for a writing tablet. Us kurtaya, some sort of leather placement, Ubeis achitzim is when you have arrows. Same thing. How do you carry the arrows on your back? So they had some sort of wooden implement that had no base kibble in which they put the arrows. Beis hapagoizois is large arrows. V'tik chalilim, case for flutes. Point of the Rambam is that all of these things, anything that's made for storage, think about it. Purpose of storage is afaker, not when you're using it, even when you're not using it. To the point that many of the commentators are wondering, well, isn't this something that's only used shaloi b'shas malach? And they ask that, and they go through it. It's very technical, but you need to have both. It's being used. The Rambam says, side when you do it, side when you don't do it. That's already going to be mekabel tumah. Medrabanan, even though it's only mishamesh kelim, cholerism afa pi she'enam el mishamshi kelim mekabel tumah. Why? Shadei kli tzarich lehem both b'shas malacha and shaloi b'shas malach. And the kasha is like what? You need to have that sheath while you're using your sword, doing your malacha. I don't know, but yeah. Okay, weiter. Avol kisui kamtera, but the covering of a wardrobe, the kisui yateva, the covering of a chest, the kisui tani, and the covering of a basket, b'machbei shel chodesh, or carpenter's press. In other words, a press that's used to straighten crooked pieces of wood. All these things are flat woodenware. The hakisei, and a chair that's placed under a chest, because a normal chair is tashmishay adam also. People sit on it. The hakamtin shalon, the dome that's covering this type of chair. The hakoilev shabain and all of tik sefer, and the mold of which a leather covering of the Torah is made. The mold, ubeis haneged, and the wooden covering of a door bolt, the covering of a latch. And mezuzah. Now, guys, I know we learned yesterday about a mezuzah. What we learned yesterday was you took a hollow reed. Remember that, and you took out the pulp inside of it. That is a proper base kibble. We're not talking about that. We're talking some sort of tick that was used to roll a mezuzah in. So just like nowadays we use the plastic, they had something very thin, but had a din of eights or something that grew, and they rolled the mezuzah in it. Has no base kibble. And you have all types of cases for musical instruments. And I would call this what many married men's wives have, where they put their sheitlach. It's like made out of wood. Then today it's made out of styrofoam or whatever. It's like the image of a head without any details upon which you rest. They would make turbans. So they're making a turban. They made this sort of wooden head, and on it they would weave or make the turban. The kalim that are used to make tefillins, and the shal eitz shal zamor shemesachkem boy. So you had singers that they were also entertainers, and to make things look funnier, they would sit on the stage on a wooden horse and sing. Something that they used while they were singing, only and the sticks that are used by mourners, and the sun shield of a poor man. Wealthy people never worked in the sun, but Merbach, this guy has to work even in those conditions. You don't want to get burned, right? Sun is good up until a point. So they had these little wooden somethings, huts that they would move around to always to be under the shade. Supports for the bed, pillars of the bed, and a board that's used, it's called a chamoy, because people are riding on a chamoy, people lay in the bed, but it's some sort of wooden board that supports the bed. They are to hide him, only b'shas malacha bulvad. So remember, guys, misham shekelim, number one, never misham sheyadam. Now, that horse on which the Mizamer sings, why is it called misham shekelim? I don't know, but we don't have time for this. Think about it. Everyone has to be properly understood. Okay, but anything, that's the dinam ha'achad. Only tashmish kelim. If they're only used while you're using the keli, that's category number 3. Not even midrabanan will be makabel tumah. Halacha base. Full of that was halacha alf. Let's get moving. Malbin amit, a headboard. So a headboard is, you can get it's flat to woodware. What is it serving exactly? So he says like this: if it is caped. What's that caped? So there's some sort of rings some people touch, that connects it strongly to the rest of the bed frame, and it has its own legs. So not only is it strongly connected to the bed, this is easy to imagine. Kevin is schwitzing with this pictures. No, it's the headboard is connected to the bed. No, the headboard that has its own legs. It's like a standalone. Now, if the bed becomes tummy, what did we learn about a bed? A bed is pshutei kliyates. What is a bed? Bed was category number 3, right, Dovi? Bed is b'sham sheyodam, b'sham shekelim, mekabel tumah midarabanan. Well, if the bed became tummy, the headboard is part of the bed. And it becomes ke'echad me'evorel. However, if it is placed on 2 of the bedposts, in other words, it doesn't have its own legs. The way it was attached to the bed was it would somehow be connected to the legs of the bed proper, and it's higher than the bed. Even though it's tied properly with the bed, you would think adarabah. You would think, right, das valabatim. If it doesn't have legs, so it's not its own keli. Avad, it's part of no, it's nothing. It's insignificant. It's like an insignificant thing, but not insignificant and therefore bottled to the bed. We say Torah. Why? But no, okay, I take back my insignificant. Here's the logic. What did we learn? Something that's only mishamish kelim. Only b'shas malacha b'lvad. Now, what about if it has legs? I think it has to do with that. That something that has legs is something more. It's a better headpost. What did we learn yesterday? That matzah minas minoi. Somehow with the legs, it's more part of the bed. The headpost is taka only mishamish b'shas malacha. Well, what do you need it for? You need it when you're in the bed. You're leaning, you're sitting up. You're not leaning against the wall. So they would have certain boards that they would use only to store their instruments. Any board that's used only to store instruments is take tohoiden. Even with the rabbanan, it's never going to become tummy. Machbei shel shakov, a press used by shoemakers, over which leather is pulled tightly, is always going to be pure. Why? Now, there's 2 questions. Question number 1 is, doesn't it have a receptacle? So first, the Rambam is going to address, you have a great picture here of wood and taka, such machbeshisin on the Zoom. Thank you, Kevan. Because since Shemaniach all of us that opening was always filled with an instrument while you're working with it. So first of all, it doesn't have a base kibble. It was meant to house that stone. Nimsa osri only l'shamish asakelim, only b'shas malach. Again, there is this hole. The enam istamim mishum kibul sheriach hakok shaboy is made to be filled with a stone. Let's move on. Allah chadalid chipuy amitom, coating of a bed. Guys, we're speaking about coating now. Why did people coat a bed? Because the wood didn't look good. We're speaking about it was done to beautify. You plated the bed. And now the Rambam gives the big rule. Any covering, I don't care what the covering is made out of. I don't care what the plating is made, whether it's made out of 8. See, by 8, you can say, I get it, because if it's a coating, it has no base kibble. No, it's not that. Even if it's etzem or oil mateches, the coating is not a keli, because it says asher yei osam locha bohem. And the Rambam learns prat l'chipuy kelim. Now, t'chein kli eitz or yetzim sheyesh behem base kibble. Even if you have a keli that has a base kibble, but it is plated, not the plating itself. Shetzipam b'mataches, you plated it with metal to hide him. Wow! And the ena makabel tuma. Why? So there are like 2 steps. Since you plated it. We're speaking about a clay eitz, and the clay eitz was coated with gold, like the Rambam said before. Mizbeach Hazav, guys, the Mizbeach Hazav was not pure gold. It was atzei shitim, and it was covered with a plating of gold. You covered the wood, you mevatel the wood. Step number 2, what did we learn in Allah Dalit? That the tzipui itself, no matter what the tzipui is made out of, is also taught. Any plated keli completely is never going to be mekama Torah. Gavaldik. Halachet. L'Rambam. Now this is going to be, I think, the final topic of this chapter. Almost. Yeah. So you have a keli that's made out of dual ingredients. Some of it is made out of wood. Some of it is made out of metal. So here we go, a couple of rules. Which one is serving which one? And you have to think for every single one. If the eitz is serving the mateches, so how do you classify the scaly guys as a clay mateches? So it's going to be mekabel tuma. I want to tell you what mekabel tuma guys held up. Even if the source of tuma touched the eitz part of it, and the eitz part of it is a part that's mishamish, you can argue only while you're working with it. No, the whole thing will become tamid d'oraisa because it's called the clay mateches. The im hoya mateches mishamesh so eitz hakol tar, meaning even if the source of tuma touched the metal part of it, it's classified as a clay eitz. Ketzad, for example, now think about a mafteya, a key. What is the key made out of? Very much like our keys. You have like the body of the key, and then you have what Chazal called the teeth of the key. The teeth is what we call today, I think, also teeth. You know, the part that goes into the lock that matches that thing and opens up the lock. Mafteya shaleitz. If the key itself is made out of wood, vishinov mi mateches. Even if only one tooth is made out of mateches, what's serving what? The main part of the key is the teeth. That is, the pick. So even if only one tooth is made out of metal, all of it is called a metal utensil. And the same thing, it's consistent. If everything is made out of metal, but the shenayim are made out of eitz, so it's called the metal is being mishamish the eitz. The main part of the key. I wish I knew the I don't. There's probably a better word for the teeth, but the teeth of a key. So then it starts because it has a din of a clay eitz. Halacha vav. Now there's something unique about a ring. You'll have to chop. You have a ring and a signet. So first of all, a ring, unlike the key, that the whole thing is only made for the teeth. A ring has a din of a keli b'fnei yatzma. So it's going to be a little bit different. Tabas shel mateches. Let's say the ring is made out of mateches. Mateches can be silver, by the way. It can be today, golden ring, a silver ring. And the choisama, the signet, is made out of almag. Now, almag is a certain type of coral. I want you to know that I know that we learned yesterday that anything coral, anything. Wow, you're up. Anything that comes from the sea is not makabel tuma. That cannot be the reason, because we also learned yesterday that if you have something that comes from the sea, remember the bogadim, and you wove it together with semen, if it's one keli, that heter is out. That heter is out. The issue over here is that almoig, if it's not the heter that it comes from the sea, it's going to be considered wood. Shutei klayeitz has no receptacle. Even though it has, it has an image, it has no receptacle. Oh, so now, it's the almoig by itself cannot become tummy. The ring is metal. Here we go. So the din is tameyam. Now the reason I want you to know why it's tameyam is because first of all, a ring is also, even without the choisemes, the ring is a ring. By the key, the whole key is just to get the teeth in the right place. The ring is a ring. Now, if the ring is made out of almond, you would think
that a signet ring, it's all about the signet.
I know, Danny. So I know I switched yesterday. Let's read. I know I get it.
Yeah, I agree. It just seems the opposite of the key. Literally.
Correct. Okay, I'm just telling you right now. At least I can repeat the words. I spend a lot more time. God has to help me in all these dinim over here and everything else. No, it's the words since the tabas is a caleb. If that's why. Now, if the ring proper is made out of almig, now almig, like the picture Kevin put for the sheath, but just because your ring, your finger fits in it, it has no base kibble. There's no base kibble. It's open on both sides. And the choisam mishal mateches. Danny, don't jump through the camera. We don't say it's considered a wooden utensil. We consider this a wooden utensil. And a wooden utensil, pshute kleyates. What's the problem? No, the problem is that we just learned the rule in halacha hey that if the wood is serving the metal, it has a din of a metal. So that is asking, why don't we say that the ring is our signet ring? Everything is serving the signet. It's not. Okay, right there. Rabbi Yaakov chops it simple. Good. I have to rewire my brain a little bit. Let's go back. Allah Chazai. Oh, it's late. Hashem Shamateches. If you have a tooth, right, of metal, what happens if they're disconnected? Mekabel tuma b'fnei atzmai if they're not mechuber l'eitz. You get it? Of course, because it's considered a keli b'fnei atzmai. Both the tooth is a purpose, so like you're saying, the signet. If you have the wooden teeth of a pitchfork, all these instruments have teeth on them, and one of them are missing. If that tooth is made out of mateches, similar to Allah Zajac. Now, Allah Ches, if you have a stick and on the top of the stick, you have like this ball, this pomegranate that's Kadeshi Yoichis, but if you'd be able to grasp it better, or if you're at Eben, the good old years, when you beat your Talmidim, it protrudes a little bit. Why? Because who's serving whom? I give a bad example. In my example, maybe it would be here, it's about the stick. It's just to help you chop onto the stick. The stick is a wooden stick. But if you've added metal on the other side, you don't want it to be corroded. Mekabel tuma, this is great. Why is it mekabel tuma? Because if without the metal, the wood will get destroyed, then you can't just make it into just being meshamish the wood. Fakert. And it's not called a tzipui. See, tzipui is ornamental. No, this is functional. Halacha 9. Here you have a stick and you put the nails. Kevin is getting excited with that. Not a ball, nails sticking out. So when you give someone a clap, mekabel tuma. Because a beating stick, the stick is serving the nails. It works. But if you have the nails only lenoi, only to scare, only lenoi, ain't a mekabel tuma. Because again, how great is that? I'm going back to my chaysama again, and maybe because that was some sort of signet that's ornamental. I don't know. Okay, halacha yud final halacha. Techei minakiyos shel mateches. A tube and tubes. These are all not a base kibble. Now, guys, hold on. Metal. I don't care that it doesn't have a base kibble. Shute mateches is mekabel tuma. But if shekavan b'makel, fakert, you affixed it to a wooden stick. You affixed it ledelis lenoi. Anything that's lenoi, it's serving. You understand? It's serving the delis. And now today's final chapter. If you thought Pedig Dalad was technical, Pedig Hay will be even more. So now the Pedig Hay is about the following. We're not going into the type of the Shiva minim of the Kalim. We're learning another rule. My friends, for something to become tamei, because it is a keli, it has to be a finished product. Any keli that's not yet considered, it went through its gemar melachton, and now again, there's going to be a lot of details. How do you define that? So then, even though it's almost there, even if you can actually use it now, but when you make those kelim, you still would add another step to make it finalized. It's not susceptible to becoming a tamei. And I would like to push it. There's not enough time. There's many gewaldige klalim that we'll learn as we learn it inside. Okay. Huh? No. Forget about base kibble. Not about base kibble. This is not about eights. This is about all kalim are only kalim. So we're going to have to speak about clothing, when our clothing considered finished, when our certain instruments considered finished. Sometimes you have a keli that even if after you have this, you're still going to make a design on it. The fact that it doesn't yet have a design doesn't mean that it's not Gemar Malachim, but as we'll see. So let's go. Halacha Aleph. Perek Hamishi has 12 halachas. We have a good 20 minutes with God's help. Kol akelim ein mekabel tuma. This is the klal of this chapter. Sheti gomer malachton. That's the key. Until the work involved in fashioning this keli is completed. Kliyate. So let's go. Kliyate ein mekabel tuma. So look at the details. When it comes to the making of a wooden bed, or when it comes to making a wooden cradle, so then even though the keli is finished, the bed is finished, wood is wood. And what they would use then to make wood look nice is that they would take the skin of a fish that has in it certain oils, and they would rub it on the wood. It would give, number one, it would smooth out any rough protrusions from the periphery of the wood. And number two, it would give it a shine. The fact that Mustamed gave it a not good smell, maybe people didn't care. Maybe people loved the smell. I don't know. That's the way they did it then. So imagine, even though the keli is fully functional, if you did not rub it with the oid hadog, that's just a great example for the whole painting. That's what we're going to be dealing back in this chapter, aside of other foundational rules. However, if you own the bed and you decided that you're not going to do this slushu, you don't like the smell of fish, you don't need it, I don't care why, then mekabel and tuma. And that's a big klal. It's when you own something, your machshava, even regarding will this undergo another step, or for you it's good enough, will really determine. So when we're learning about it's not mekabel tuma, it means stam. That's the rule by beds and cribs. That step is normally needed. Hasalam shalates, wooden baskets, are considered, when are they complete? When their borders are sealed. In other words, the border is made around the ends of the weave of the reeds, and you have to tie them together. That's the tying them together, because you know what happens if you don't tie together the ends of a weave? They can easily become undone. So prior to you doing it, it's not called finished. And number two, and the yichvais uktzei hasurigim b'ha'itzam aktana b'yitzam agavi asal, that the ends of the branches and the small pieces of wood that emerge over the rim of the basket are trimmed, because people didn't like it when you would get scratched by it. If they were made out of palm leaves, that are not as sharp as wood, as twigs, even though you did not trim the ends of the leaves that are on the inside, they're mekabel and tuma, because that's the way people left it. Makes a lot of sense. In other words, things that are made out of leaves, any protrusions are less problematic. Kalkola is a basket referring to a hanging basket. When is it considered a completed product? When its border is sealed, and and when the ends of the branches are trimmed, and the loop upon which it hangs is completed. Because if it's made to be a hanging basket, that's a big cloud. And we're going to learn in this chapter that of a loop. We're going to get to the loop in a moment. And we're going to see, Rabbi Yaakov, that we don't always view a loop as a yad. We'll speak about it when we get there in this chapter, which we'll have another. We already learned about yades previously. This is Gavaldik. Okay. Now, I think still the picture of yesterday's elephant was better than this. Beis hakoisas v'haliginim, baskets for cups, baskets for jugs. There, in other words, there we don't care if it's not. Why? That's the cloud. Because let's go weiter. Hakenoinim, wicker servers, hakatanim, and hakelosois, reed bowls. When are they considered completed? Again, when the borders are sealed. And the again, when you cut up, when you trim off the branches. Large wicker serving trays, and containers. When you make two circles around the width, not one, two, because they're very big. A sifter, a sieve, or the kalim, which we call weighing pans. They're only one circle needs to be woven around. It's right there. It's already considered a finished product. Hakupa, a large basket. When is it considered complete? When two circles are around the width. The ha'arak. So we have arak. So I know many people here, the Moroccans, but the arak. Now we know what arak means, guys. A long, narrow basket. Gedenk. That's arak. The arak. As there only one circle is needed. I think they're smaller. It's about the smaller one, the larger two. And it's all about how they made it at the time that you're applying the halach. Even though that the walls of the baskets are not complete. So you have to picture this. Sometimes you make like the ending and then you build the walls to the ending. Mekabel and tuma. Because even prior to the walls being complete, they can already be functional. And it looks like a keli. Lamaz Adoimi gives a great example. If I'm weaving a baguette and I want to make our pants, but I already wove enough to have the 3x3 fingers. Even though, in other words, if you don't have this type of circle around the width, then it's not called a completed keli. But if you made the trimmings of the end, that it's going to be functional, that whatever you have will not come apart, that it's not going to hurt you, even though it's clear that you intend to make the walls much taller. And instead of holding 10 ounces, it's meant to hold 20 ounces. It's already considered complete. This is a big halach. Next. Hamachatzelas, a mat. A As long as the leaves, the long leaves from which you're making the mat are trimmed, it's considered complete. The whole clay on the sodim, all can made out of thin shoots of wood, until the borders are sealed. Golme clayates, guys, golme clayates. It's very important. What's Pshat golem clayates? Certain kalim, you want it to look nice when they are finished. There's certain kalim that as long as it is functional, that's called a goylem. A goylem means kalim that are not made with a nice finish. We're not speaking about a block of wood. It's not a keli. It's a keli, but they're meant to remain this. So what's the ending? When it looks like what it's meant to be made for. Now, even if you later will plan, litoy aroy, you plan to paint designs on it, ubaseret, right, with dye. Or if you later plan lahashavoyse b'mechuga, you want to even it out better. Or if you want to beautify the matzad, you're going to use a plane later to make it smoother. It's still a goylam. Since the wood part of it is complete. You understand? Because that's the definition of golme kliates. Golme kliates is a keli that at that time, no one is makbid to make it beautiful. Even if you know what, I'm going to make a nice painting on it later, it doesn't matter. It's made out of boxwood, because boxwood is a very inferior material. Only if it's made beautiful. If it's not made beautiful, it's garnished. The Rambam says, bone kalim should be like the clay eshkiroya, which means that if you're making a goylme clay etzem, the ein golme makablam tuma. And we mentioned this in the last chapter. We mentioned this 2 chapters ago, I'm sorry. Right, in chapter 3, that clay etzem, you'll know, clay etzem is very much like clay eights. But here the Rambam is comparing it to the boxwood. Okay, right. A new din in this, we're middle of halacha. Wow, halacha aleph. It's a big halacha. Clay eight she'ein olav tudas clean. Okay, it's not formed yet, even though people actually are using it the way it is. Here's Yaakov. But you're making it to be something. It's not that yet. It's not a keli. Halacha vayter arubai shel nachtoimim, large wooden trays used by professional bakers. When things are dough, you put it on it. They are mistamois. It looks like a tray. It's a flat board. Shel balabatim. Now, don't forget, guys. If there's no rim, then it's only midrabanan. If it has a rim, then it's a makabel. We're not overriding any halachas we learned previously. We're just defining the meaning of a gemar malachim. V'shel balabatim ena makabel tum, because they don't have a specific form, and balabatim want to have something a little bit more beautiful. That's the way it works. What is acceptable for your business instrument is not good enough for your house. It's not called gemar malachim. You have the imtzavan, but if the balabais who had this slab of board, but he painted it with red dye, he painted it with saffron. Amazing. I'll tell you something. Ordinary wood, you don't paint. The act of the painting, that in itself makes it into a keli. Tzuras keli. Srut shal nachtoimen, a baker's any accessory. But what type? That in which he'll place water, from which he'll use to daub the dough, is tamei. V'shal balabatim again will be tahar. Shall be tar. The question is that we're not speaking about a klikibel. In other words, balabatim use a flat board. That's the way it works. In other words, it's a very little amount of water. So there's no place kibble here. But if you made a rim, like we just mentioned, the moment you have a flat rim, if you have a small rim, what did we learn about the base kibble? A base kibble has no minimum amount. So when you make a rim around any flat, that makes it into a base kibble keli. Vistami. Now, what happens if nifratz miruach echad, you made a rim and only one side of the rim got broken? And we said that if you would be a professional baker, that amount of water doesn't need a 4-sided rim. But we said that if it's from balabatim, you have to have a rim. If even only one side got broken, then tard, aluach, any board, on which the loaves are arranged, even from balabatim, that's already mistamik. Clay eights, a container of wood. Shahasalosin meraktin, all of us are saying, listen, people that sip the flour over it because you want to chop the flour, the good flour, mistamik. Shobalabatim toy, and everyone challenges why Shobalabatim toy. But you have to put no. If they would know what the case of the Mishnah is, then they will understand it. Rachas Hageroisa is the winnowing shovel for beans. Mistamois, the shallois, sarais, but if they're used for gathering, not for winnowing, that's going to be a big cloud. They're going to remain tahar. As the Rambam will explain a cloud in a moment. Shell gitois, if something that's used to gather the waste of a vat, are mistamois, the shell geroinois, one used to gathering grain in a green hab, is tahira. Why? Zaklau. Kabbalah, anything that's made to serve as a receptacle is a makabel tuma. And you know something? Even if it doesn't have a base kibble, there also could be midrabana. But any keli that's made only lechanes boy, only to gather items, you're moving things, you're gathering. That's then it's tahir. Gavaldik rule. Halacha base. Kol hataloyin tahir. Now, we have to say like this. We're speaking about loops or some other part that are added to a keli in order to be able to hang the keli. What you have to add over here is like this. If any tuluyoim, Yaakov, are permanently attached to the utensil, if that will be the case, you know what you would call it? You would call it a yad. A yad, we learned already before, is going to be part of the keli. It's not permanently affixed. It's made in a way that you can latch it on, you can latch it off. And it's something that's mishamesh, the keli. So the din is, kol hataloyin tahirim. Chutz miteloye nafashal salasim. What's the exception? The loops for a sifter of flour makers. A loop for a keli that's used in the granary. Toloi magal yod. Right, this type of loop that is used to hang up a handheld sickle. Utoloi makal habaloshin. What is das baloshin? Baloshin are these tax collectors. People are trying to evade taxes wrongfully. So what do they do? So you had a pile of hay, and you would hide in your pile. You would hide expensive stuff. So when the tax collectors would come, one of the things they would have the stick, and they would poke inside heaps to see if anything is in it. Okay, and those sticks were hung on a loop. Again, the loop is not permanently affixed. Here, they will be mekabel to why? Because if it's a loop that's only being used only while you're storing the keli, that's a gavaldik rule. Since it's not permanently affixed, I don't care what the loop is made out of. It's never mekabel tuma. Gavaldik zaklal ha'asoi l'sayoi during malacha, even if you also use it when you store it. But you use it b'shas malacha, v'stamei litlois boy hakeli bilvad tar. Beautiful. Allah gimel. Ooh, it's like nivlei hamashoidim v'stamen nivlei hamashoidim cavities. Think about there are many musical instruments. I want to say something. Even if a musical instrument has a hollow in it, if it's not to be makabel something, if it's only made to give an echo to a sound, that does not make it into a clay keyboard. Remember that. That's going to be important for the guitars that we'll learn later. However, some people, they would have on their musical instruments a hollow where if people would throw them a couple of coins, they would put the money in there. That's what we're talking about. So nivli hamashalim istamin. Why? Because they have a base kibble for the money that people pay them. Nivli b'nei Levi. And the Beis Hamikdash, no one gave money to the Levium, so therefore that's not considered a clay kibble. Habitnoin, a guitar, that's the way he teaches here. Hanik temoin, a standing harp. The ho'eros and a drum, all of them are considered to be a keli with a base kibble. Maybe even if it's only for sound. I don't know why. Stama, because you need that base kibble for the sound paket. A base kibble with sound is problematic. You push it. And Mastama, the Nivle Hamashoidim, it had a flat wooden board back. It echoed off the wood, but there wasn't a base kibble. Yeah, I think that's what it is. If it has a base kibble, it's Makabal Tum. If it has a hole in it. Doesn't have a hole.
I explained before, it's just because down here says that it's used to store things in it.
Yeah, that was only, no, it's if you have a flat board.
Then just any hollow for the sound would be a problem. What we're saying
Yeah,
now.
that's exactly what I'm saying. That's the way to learn. Any keli with a bass cable like a guitar is makabel tuma.
If you're not storing it.
No. Those liars, I'm saying they had a flat board. I think fakir, the whole vart is a bass cable is even only for sound. Certain instruments had no bass cable. They had a wooden board. You had strings in front of a flat wooden board. That's not makabel tuma if it doesn't have another receptacle. Let's go back to. We have another few minutes. Allah Chadal. Mitzudas hachaluda. A trap for moles mistame. V'shel achbarim, the tahira. I can relate to that. The old style. Think about it, mouse traps. It's a flat board with that little metal that flips on them. Doesn't have a receptacle. Lefish ein lebeis kibul, and the einon of tzulas keli. Now halacha hey koitzin shargan behen branches from which you would weave a basket like a kfi for shom nichmateim koitzin boy mistamen shargan ben k'tavas megura gedayla. Those which are woven into a form of a large silo, guys. A large silo is something that looks like a house. Not a keli, you know, if you build this big house. To get that. Something that looks, even though if it's movable, it's not called a keli. It doesn't look like a keli. Right? It's a hut. Halachava. Olin, Shemisargan, Oisam, Kamin, Siyag, Saviv, Lapedes. When leaves are woven into a divider around produce, they are pure because it's not a lasting entity. Another thing, something very flimsy. If you made it out of twigs, not out of leaves, big difference. Twigs are, it doesn't have to last forever, but it's a whole different thing. A pocket made of palm branches, in which fresh dates are placed. If indeed the pocket is used, the inside of the pocket is used, if it's such a type of pocket that once you put stuff in it, you can't get it out. The only way you get it out is by ripping it open, right? Ripping it or undoing it. Or, guys, this is a key. This is a very important halacha. If you made a certain type of pocket, but you will only use it once, what is that called in English? A disposable keli, the din is tahar. And that's huge, and that's the whole thing, whether you can make kiddush on these disposable cups. Question in halacha, in other words, disposable kelim, and again, are not considered kelim. If you have a horn, even though it's a receptacle, but it was so inexpensive, you would use it once, that's the way it worked, and you would throw it away, and mekabelas tuma. But if you decided to continuously use it, that will be key, mekabelas tuma. Halacha 8, a shofar, einay mekabel tuma. But chatochel is keren tashmish, not for the mitzvah, but for then mekabel tuma. Halacha 9. In other words, tashmish a mitzvah. Maybe because mitzvah is lav lohanis, no, it doesn't have a din of a keli. Halacha 9. If you have a bowl, if you have a keli that was permanently attached to these large closets, if the way you would use it as your own feeding plate, right? That side is facing up. The fact that you connected it to a shaded table mikol doesn't change. But if it's, guys, here's my plate, and I didn't affix it on top of the keli, I put it on the wall. It's like an ornament, and it's affixed to the wall now. So the din is, and even you affixed it to the side of the wall. Can you still use it? Yeah, if you're going to take the whole closet and you're going to put the closet to the side, so then it's part of the closet. And we're speaking, let's go about a closet that's made out of wood, my friends. We already said that if it has a certain size or larger, it's not makabel tuma. That will affect the din of the plate. Halacha yud ha'akon, a fishing trap, and a bird trap, bakaluf shalates, and a wooden cage. They are all pure. Halacha yud aleph hamadov, a flat trap for birds, a paltzur, and a snare for birds. And when you would something that's used to dam or gather the water together, you gather the water together because then you know what you're gonna have inside that water, a lot of fish. You understand? Mistamin, why is it different than the akum harotoif hakolov? Because they look like a tzuras keli. So if you would have good pictures of halacha yud and halacha yud aleph, then you'll get exactly what the Rambam is getting at. Final halacha today, halacha yud base, hasap solin benches. that are set up in inns, or benches that you have in the Chadorim. Now let me explain something. Don't think about today's bench, right? There's two parts to it. Let me tell you something. There's the where you sit down on, and then what is it supported on? And that will be very key. Were they connected or were they not connected? Right? Today, when you have all these chairs that you're moving about, chairs, even if it's a foldable, when you move one part, you move everything together. So let's go. Even though they are made in a way that you can easily insert the legs in them, they remain tohorim. They remain tohorim because if the legs are not kavua in them, what's a daf? Now, the daf is not a pshute kliyetz latash. No. Without the legs, you can't use it. No, you constantly are taking it apart, even though you can build it back together. When it's apart, what is it? It's nothing. I think even when it's together, it's nothing because that part is not connected. Because in kavua, it's nothing. But even if only one nail connected the legs, and zaklau, koil shanito, when you move the one part, the ein naglav natolim imai, it's not connected. It's not a keli, even when they are one and the other tard. Now, then they are makabel tumam. Why? And even hoisa achas miraglav shel even, then ain't a makabel tuma. I got it. Because clay etzem is never makabel tuma. Since clay etzem is not makabel tuma, if the legs of a bench is made out of stone, we classify this utensil, even the top part, as a clay Evan. No, it's not. It's etzem. It's not Evan. Yeah, Evan. Yeah, I get the Evan part.
The first half of the halacha was talking about legs, presumably that were wood, that weren't attached, and then we said that it's not attached, and then it's tar. And now it seems like it's saying if the legs are wood, then it's tummy. I don't understand.
I'm guessing because at wood, that's the way they made them. Maybe by wooden utensils, that's the way they were. By the wood and bone, that they were not connected, but they are considered, while they are together, they're considered the keli. It's made out of metal, it's not considered the keli unless it's connected. And if it's made, and if the last thing is a third, and if it's made, if there's some evan in it, then it's considered the clay etzem, and we have to go daven.